The hallway outside the delivery room smelled like metal, antiseptic, and fear. Nurses rushed past with trays of instruments. Alarms echoed through the walls, and somewhere inside that room, Avery Monroe was fighting for her life while bringing 3 more into the world. Her pulse had flatlined twice, her lungs almost collapsed. And still, she pushed through it, unaware that the man who should have been holding her hand was standing only 10 steps away, scrolling his phone with an expression colder than the hospital tiles beneath him. Damien Hartwell checked his reflection in a glass cabinet, smoothing the collar of his suit as if preparing for a board meeting, not the birth of his children. His lawyer stood beside him, holding a folder thick with papers. "She's still unconscious," the lawyer whispered. "If you want out, this is the cleanest moment." Damien didn't hesitate. Not for a second. Not for the wife who nearly died. Not for the babies fighting for air inside 3 separate incubators. He took the pen, a sleek silver pen he always carried for contract signings, and pressed it to the page. A single signature, a single breath, a single betrayal. When the surgeon finally stepped out, pale, exhausted, her mask hanging from one ear, her voice cracked with relief. "Your wife made it. The babies are alive. Tiny, but strong." Damien didn't even look at her. "Where do I sign the last page?" he asked. The doctor froze. "Sir, your family needs you." "I'm no longer her family," he replied, flipping to the final document. "We're done here." An orderly passing by stopped mid-step, stunned. Even the lawyer swallowed hard, unsettled. But Damien didn't care. He signed the final line, snapped the folder shut, and straightened his jacket like a man completing a deal, not ending a marriage. He didn't ask about Avery's condition. He didn't ask if the babies had names. He didn't ask if she would wake up. He simply turned away. And as he walked down the corridor, his expensive shoes clicking like a countdown, he had no idea that the choice he just made would destroy everything he built, because the moment the hospital clerk printed the bracelets for the newborns, Damien's world was already shifting. The babies didn't carry his last name. They carried a name he feared without even knowing it yet. Ellington Monroe. And when Damien finally saw it, he would freeze. Avery Monroe woke to the sound of machines beeping in uneven rhythms, as if the room itself couldn't decide whether she should live or fade away. Her vision blurred. Her throat felt scorched. Every muscle screamed from the emergency C-section that nearly took her life. She tried to lift her hand, but even that felt like lifting concrete. The first thing she whispered wasn't, "Where am I?" It was, "My babies, please, my babies." A nurse rushed to her side. "Easy, sweetheart. Don't move too fast. You lost a lot of blood." Avery blinked hard, forcing the world into focus. "Are they alive?" The nurse hesitated. Not long, just long enough for Avery's heart to crack. "They're in the NICU," the nurse finally said. "Very small, very fragile. But yes, they're alive." Tears spilled from Avery's eyes, running into her hairline. She tried to sit up, but pain ripped through her abdomen, making her gasp. The nurse gently held her down. "You need to breathe. You need to recover." Avery swallowed hard. "I need my husband. Please, tell him I'm awake." That was when the nurse's expression changed just slightly, but unmistakably, a flicker of discomfort. Even pity. "Avery," she began softly, "there's something you need to know." Before the nurse could finish, someone entered. A man in a gray suit. No badge, no flowers, no warmth. He carried a tablet like he was entering a conference room, not a maternity ward. "Miss Monroe," he said flatly, "I'm with the hospital's legal liaison team." Avery frowned. "Where's Damien?" "Why is legal?" He cut her off. "Your marital status changed early this morning." The divorce was finalized at 2:14 a.m. Avery stared at him, her mind refusing to process the words. "That's impossible. I was unconscious." "Your signature was already on file from prior medical consent documents," he replied. "It was considered valid." Her chest tightened. No, he wouldn't do that. Not today. Not after. "He already has," the man said, turning the tablet toward her. There it was. Damien's signature. Her printed name. The timestamp. All legal. All final. Avery felt the world tilt. She gripped the sheet so tightly, her knuckles whitened. The man continued, oblivious to her breaking heart. "Because the divorce is finalized, Your insurance coverage through Mr. Hartwell ended immediately. Your room will be reassigned. And regarding your children, Avery's head snapped up. My children? There will be a temporary review of custodial authority, he said, given your current medical condition and financial status. My babies need me, Avery whispered. I haven't even held them yet. That will be determined, he repeated. The nurse shot him a furious look, but said nothing. Within an hour, Avery was moved out of the private recovery suite Damien had booked months ago and wheeled into a cramped, windowless room on a different floor. Her belongings were placed in a plastic bag. Her pain medication was reduced. Her chart was flagged with financial reevaluation. Every step of the transfer echoed one truth. Damien had erased her. But the worst moment came when she begged to see her babies. Not yet, the administrator said coldly. We need clarification on who has legal decision-making authority. Avery sobbed so hard her stitches burned. They're my children. Please, please. End quote. As the administrator walked away, the nurse leaned close and whispered something Avery didn't fully understand, but it planted a small tremor of hope. There are people watching this. People who don't like what's being done to you. Avery lifted her head, trembling. Who? She whispered. The nurse looked toward the NICU hallway. You'll find out soon enough, she said. And when the truth arrives, everything will change. The wheelchair rattled as Avery was pushed down the cold hallway, every bump sending sharp shocks through her stitches. Her body wasn't ready to move. Her mind wasn't ready to understand. But the hospital had made its decision, and she was no longer a wife, just a patient with limited insurance and no advocate. Please slow down, Avery whispered, gripping the armrests as a wave of dizziness washed over her. The orderly didn't respond. He was following orders, not compassion. Avery stared at the floor, watching the tiles blur beneath her, each one pulling her farther away from the life she thought she had. They passed the NICU doors. She reached out, weakly, desperately. Can I see them? Just for a second, please. The orderly didn't stop. Her fingertips brushed the glass, leaving a faint smear. Please, she whispered again, voice cracking. A nurse inside looked up, saw her distress, and tried to come out, but a supervisor stepped into her path, blocking her. Rules were rules. Liability. Custodial review. Words that meant nothing beside the primal truth that 3 tiny babies needed their mother. Avery felt something inside her tear, not physically, but deeper, something no surgeon could mend. She had carried those children through every cramp, every fear, every sleepless night. She had nearly died bringing them into the world, and now a signature she never saw had stolen them away. When they reached the new room, a cramped space with peeling paint and a single flickering light, the orderly parked the wheelchair without looking at her. If you need anything, press the button, he said. Avery nodded numbly. Thank you. He left without another word. She tried to stand, but pain stabbed through her abdomen, forcing her back onto the thin mattress. The blanket smelled of bleach and age. Nothing like the soft linens Damien had insisted on during her prenatal visits. As she lay there, the truth hit her so hard, she almost gagged. Damien hadn't just abandoned her. He had planned this, prepared it, executed it. She fumbled for her phone, hands trembling. She dialed Damien's number, blocked. She tried again, blocked. She texted him anyway. Please, I need you. Our babies need you. The message didn't deliver. Avery covered her mouth to muffle the sob that escaped her. She curled onto her side, hugging herself, trying to hold her body together while everything else fell apart. Hours later, a cafeteria worker brought her a tray with cold soup and crackers. You're on a reduced plan now, she said apologetically. I'm sorry, it's policy. Avery nodded, unable to speak. She wasn't hungry. She was hollow. Night fell. Machines beeped distantly. Laughter from another room echoed down the hall, sharp and cruel in contrast to her silence. Then footsteps. Soft, hesitant. A knock. Avery wiped her face quickly. Come in, she whispered. The door opened just enough for a woman to step inside a nurse she thought she recognized from earlier. Her expression was conflicted, her eyes full of a sympathy she wasn't allowed to show in daylight. Miss Monroe, she said quietly, I shouldn't be here, but you need to know something. Avery blinked, trying to sit up. What is it? The nurse glanced over her shoulder, making sure no one was watching. "You're not alone in this," she whispered. "Someone has been asking about you. Someone important." Avery's breath caught. "Who?" The nurse stepped closer, lowering her voice. He said, "His name is Ellington." Avery froze. She didn't know anyone by that name. But whoever he was, he had just changed everything. The next morning arrived slowly, dripping into the room like cold water. Avery hadn't slept at all. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the NICU alarms. Imagined one of her babies slipping away while she lay useless in this dim, forgotten room. Her body ached, her throat burned, and her heart felt like someone had reached inside and torn it in half. She stared at the door, replaying the nurse's whispered words again and again. Someone named Ellington. Someone important. Someone asking about her. It made no sense. She didn't know anyone powerful. She didn't even know anyone wealthy. She was a school teacher who clipped coupons and bought second-hand baby clothes. The only Ellington she had ever heard of was a name mentioned in financial news whenever some major acquisition happened. But that was a different universe, one Damien belonged to, not her. The door opened suddenly, making her flinch. Dr. Naomi Reed stepped inside, holding a chart. Unlike most staff, she didn't try to hide her frustration. "You look worse than yesterday," she said gently. "Pain levels? Manageable?" Avery lied. "I need to see my babies." Dr. Reed exhaled. "I've put in the request again. Administration is slow." "Because of the divorce?" Avery whispered. "Because of your ex-husband," Dr. Reed corrected sharply. "But this hospital doesn't belong to him, not anymore." Avery frowned. "What does that mean?" Before Dr. Reed could answer, there was a knock, firm, confident, out of place in the shabby corridor. Dr. Reed opened the door, then stiffened. A man stood there. Tall, clean-cut, dark coat, a presence that made the room feel suddenly small. "Miss Monroe?" he said. Avery's breath caught. "Yes?" He stepped inside, closing the door behind him, his gaze steady but not unkind. "My name is Noah Ellington." Avery blinked. I don't know you." "You don't," he agreed. "But I know your children." Her heart slammed against her ribs. "What?" Noah took a seat at the foot of her bed, his expression calm and controlled, like someone used to handling crises without flinching. "I'm not here on behalf of the hospital. I'm here because of their names." Avery stared, confused. "Their last name," Noah continued, "Ellington Monroe." Avery's lips parted. "That's what my mother told me to write, years ago. She said it belonged to our family somehow." Noah nodded. "It does, and it's not a common name. In fact, there are only 2 branches of the Ellington family left in the Midwest. One of them is mine." He paused, letting the weight of it sink in. "And the moment the NICU registered those names, our internal legal department was alerted." Avery felt dizzy. "Why? What does that mean?" "It means your children triggered a chain of protections," Noah said. "Ones your ex-husband can't override even with money, lawyers, or threats." Avery gripped the blanket. "I don't understand. I didn't ask for anything." "I know," Noah replied gently, "which is exactly why I'm here. You're being cornered by someone who thinks you're alone." His voice softened. "But you're not." Avery's eyes burned with fresh tears. "Can you help me see my babies?" Noah didn't hesitate. "Yes, and more than that, I'm going to make sure no one touches them again without your consent." Avery's breath hitched. "Why? Why would you help me?" Noah held her gaze for a long, quiet moment. "Because your children carry the Ellington name," he said. "And because of what that means, things are about to change for you, and for Damien." Avery swallowed hard. "Change how?" Noah's expression darkened, a quiet storm forming in his eyes. "Let's just say," he murmured, "your ex-husband is about to realize the biggest mistake he has ever made." While Avery struggled to sit upright in her dim hospital room, Damien Hartwell was raising a glass of champagne under crystal chandeliers. The contrast couldn't have been crueler. Chicago's most exclusive rooftop lounge glowed with warm lights, jazz humming low as city towers shimmered below. Damien stood near the edge, the skyline stretching like a trophy behind him. Vivian Lake slipped her hand around his arm, her red dress catching every reflection of the room. "To new beginnings," Vivian said, clinking her glass lightly against his. Damien smirked. "To freedom." Freedom, that's what he called it. Freedom from responsibility. Freedom from a wife who needed too much. Freedom from 3 tiny infants he viewed as liabilities rather than miracles. He didn't think about Avery's body stitched together. He didn't think about the incubators or the oxygen tubes. He didn't think about how close she came to dying. He thought about himself. Vivian leaned closer, her breath warm against his ear. "You handled everything perfectly. Clean, no mess." Damien chuckled. "It's business. Even family matters." But even as he spoke, something buzzed at the back of his mind, an unease he didn't want to acknowledge. His CFO had emailed twice asking about a suspicious Freez alert, and an attorney had requested clarification about unexpected lineage flags. He ignored them. Tonight was about his victory. He slipped his phone from his pocket, checking the time. A new notification blinked up, another urgent message from his legal department. He flicked it away. "Dance with me?" Vivian asked, pulling him toward the floor. For a moment, Damien let himself enjoy it, the music, the attention, the feeling of control returning to him like oxygen. He had done the impossible, cut ties before the children became too expensive, too complicated, too public. Investors would respect him for it. But as he spun Vivian lightly beneath the gold lights, a man at the far end of the lounge noticed him, then quickly looked away and typed something into his phone. Another warning ignored. Downstairs, Damien's driver waited beside the black luxury sedan, engine humming. A call came through. Unknown number. The driver answered automatically. "Is Mr. Hartwell available?" a deep voice asked. "He's busy," the driver said. The voice didn't sound surprised. "Tell him the Ellington inquiry has been escalated." The driver froze. He'd heard that name before, in the same way soldiers recognize the sound of an approaching missile. He opened his mouth to ask a question, but the line had already gone dead. Upstairs, Damien laughed at something, Vivian whispered, unaware that the first domino in his empire had begun to topple. Hours later, after the party ended, Damien finally checked his phone again. Another alert. Another flagged document. Another reminder that something wasn't aligning. He scrolled lazily until one message caught his eye. Immediate review required. NICU bracelets carry last name Ellington Monroe and bruise. Damien stopped breathing. His fingers trembled just slightly as he zoomed in on the attached photo. 3 tiny hospital bracelets. 3 printed names. 3 undeniable connections. Ellington. 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 Damien's chest tightened. No. This couldn't be happening. Vivian glanced over. "What's wrong?" Damien didn't answer. Because for the first time since signing the divorce papers, he felt something colder than guilt, sharper than fear. Recognition. Avery hadn't just kept a secret. She had carried a name that could dismantle him. And Damien had just realized too late that the freedom he was celebrating was the very rope tightening around his own neck. Avery woke before sunrise, her body trembling from a mixture of pain, fear, and exhaustion. She hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the NICU doors. She saw tiny bodies fighting for each breath. She saw Damien's name erased from her paperwork, replaced with cold labels like pending custodial review. As she struggled to sit up, her stitches pulled sharply, reminding her she was still half broken. But a mother doesn't stop hurting just because she's hurting. She reached for the call button. "Please," she whispered when the nurse arrived. "I need to see them. I need to see my babies. I'll crawl there if I have to." The nurse's eyes softened. "I put your name in again, sweetheart. But administration, they're waiting for clarification from your ex-husband's attorneys." Avery pressed her trembling hand to her forehead. "I'm their mother. Why does he get to decide anything?" The nurse hesitated. "Damien filed an early custody motion, claiming you're medically unstable." Avery felt the world tilt. "I nearly died giving birth to them. That's not instability. That's sacrifice." The nurse squeezed her shoulder gently. "I know, honey, but he controls the narrative right now. Things watching." Avery's throat tightened. She could barely breathe. Damien had money, connections, lawyers, a polished image. She had nothing. No family left, no savings, no legal representation. Just pain and newborns who needed her more than anyone. A knock interrupted them. Dr. Reed entered with a folder in her hand and tension in her shoulders. "Avery, we need to talk." Avery braced herself. "Is it my babies? Please, just tell me." "They're stable," Dr. Reed said quickly. "Nothing bad happened overnight." Avery exhaled shakily. "But," Dr. Reed continued, One of them had a breathing episode. He's okay now, but it shows how fragile they still are. Avery began to cry silently. I should be there. They need to know I'm there. And that's exactly why this next part matters, Dr. Reed said. She pulled up a document. There's been a request for a temporary visitation freeze. Avery's heart nearly stopped. From who? Your ex-husband's legal team. 2040. Avery felt like someone had punched her in the gut. She clutched her blanket, shaking. Why? Why would he want to keep me away? Dr. Reed hesitated before answering. They're building a case that you're emotionally unstable and need evaluation before interacting with the infants. That's a lie, Avery whispered. I'm not unstable. I'm devastated. I know, Dr. Reed said firmly, and I won't allow them to cut you off. But everything is a fight now. Every minute. Diallo. Avery's vision blurred with tears. I don't know how to fight him. He has everything. I can barely walk. Dr. Reed sat beside her, voice steady. You're stronger than you think, and you're not alone anymore. Avery shook her head. I don't even know what that means. Dr. Reed gave her a small, hopeful smile. It means someone stepped in last night, someone with real power. His name is Noah Ellington, and from what I've seen, your ex-husband has no idea what he's up against. Because, Avery wiped her tears. But I don't know him. Maybe not, Dr. Reed said, but he knows your children, and he cares about the name they carry. Avery swallowed. What happens now? Dr. Reed stood. Now, we brace for impact, because Damien just started a war he cannot win. Avery closed her eyes, her breath trembling. And for the first time, fear mixed with something else. The faintest spark of hope. The world outside Avery's room brightened as morning settled into the hospital, but inside, the air remained heavy. She clutched the thin blanket around her shoulders, fighting both the cold and the gnawing panic inside her chest. The name Ellington echoed in her mind over and over, a name that didn't belong to her world, yet somehow reshaped it overnight. Noah Ellington returned just after sunrise, knocking softly before entering. He carried no entourage, no briefcase, no air of superiority, just a quiet seriousness that contrasted sharply with the chaos swirling around Avery's life. I hope I'm not waking you, he said. I haven't slept, Avery murmured. Noah nodded, as if he expected that. I have updates. Some good, some complicated. Avery tried to steady herself. Please, just tell me everything. Noah pulled a chair beside her bed, leaning forward. Before we talk about Damien, you need to understand what the Ellington name means. Avery looked down at her hands. My mother said to use that name if I ever had children, but she never explained why. It's because your mother was born in Ellington, Noah said gently. Our grandfathers were brothers. You and I were family, Avery. Distant, but real. Avery's breath caught. Family? Noah nodded. Your mother walked away years ago. She wanted a simpler life. She didn't want the money, the pressure, the politics, but the name remained. And legally, your children are direct heirs to a tightly protected trust established decades ago. Avery blinked. Heirs? My babies? Yes. And because of that, when the NICU registered them, the system flagged their names. The trust has strict clauses. One of them is immediate intervention if any Ellington descendant is put at risk. Avery stared, stunned. So, that's why you came? In part, Noah paused. But also because the report mentioned something else, custodial danger and potential interference from Damien Hartwell. Avery felt sick. He's trying to take them from me. And he filed falsified claims to do it, Noah said, claims that will not withstand scrutiny. Avery pressed a shaking hand to her mouth. I didn't know any of this. I don't want money. I just want my babies. And that's why I believe you deserve protection, Noah replied. Not because of wealth, but because of what you've endured. Avery's voice cracked. Can you get me to them? Just let me see them, touch them. Yes, Noah said without hesitation. But there's another thing you need to know first. Avery froze. What? The Ellington Trust has already begun an internal investigation. His expression hardened, and Damien's name came up more times than I expected. Avery's heart pounded. Why? What does he have to do with any of this? Noah exhaled slowly. He submitted paperwork claiming full custody rights to the trust rights that don't legally exist unless the mother is deemed unfit. Avery's blood turned cold. He's trying to steal my children, for money. For access, Noah corrected. Ellington assets are powerful leverage. Damien knows that. He thought you were alone. Vulnerable. Easy to erase. Avery shook, tears streaming silently. But he didn't know your children carry a name that carries weight, Noah said. And because of that, the trust has frozen all pending motions filed in Damien's name. He cannot proceed. Avery felt her breath return slow, trembling, but real. So, she whispered, what happens now? Noah stood, his expression resolute. Now, Avery, we take back everything he tried to take from you. He extended a hand. Starting with your right to hold your children. Avery's heart stuttered. For the first time since giving birth, she felt the faint warmth of a future she might actually survive. The walk to the NICU felt longer than the journey that brought Avery into motherhood. Noah moved slowly beside her, letting her lean on him when her legs trembled. Every step reminded her that her body was still torn, stitched, healing, but her heart pushed harder than her wounds held her back. Outside the NICU doors, the air was cold enough to sting. Nurses moved briskly inside, checking oxygen levels, adjusting monitors, whispering updates. The faint beeps echoed through the hall like tiny heartbeats calling to her. Avery gripped the wall. I'm scared. Noah looked at her gently. Being scared means you care, but they need you. And the trust has already cleared access. No one can stop you now. Avery swallowed hard. Damien might try. He can try, Noah said, voice steady. He won't succeed. Because... A nurse Avery recognized from the day before hurried over, her expression shining with relief. Miss Monroe, good news. You're approved for contact. All the restrictions have been lifted. Avery's knees buckled, and she covered her mouth as tears flooded her eyes. She nodded, unable to speak. Come, the nurse said softly. Let's meet your babies. Inside, the NICU was a world of quiet machines and glowing incubators. 3 tiny shapes lay under warm lights, each smaller than her forearm, wrapped in impossibly small blankets. Tubes assisted their lungs. Monitors tracked their fragile rhythms. Avery's breath shattered. They're so small, she whispered. They're fighters, the nurse said. Just like their mother. The nurse guided Avery to the first incubator. This little one, your daughter, she had a rougher night, but she's responding well now. Avery pressed her palm to the glass. Hi, little love, she choked out. Mommy's here. Her baby's fingers twitched, and Avery sobbed. Are you ready? The nurse asked gently. We can do skin-to-skin contact. Avery froze, fear mixing with longing. Can I really hold her? You need to, the nurse said. She needs to feel you. With trembling hands, Avery lowered herself into a cushioned chair. The nurse carefully lifted the tiny infant, swaddled in warm cloth, and placed her onto Avery's chest. The moment the baby touched her skin, Avery gasped. It felt like her heart lit up from the inside. The baby's ragged breath steadied. Her tiny fingers curled instinctively against Avery's chest. As if she had been waiting for this moment, the sound, the warmth, the heartbeat she recognized before she ever opened her eyes. Avery wept openly. Not the desperate sobs from before. These tears were different. They were healing, life-giving, powerful. I'm here, Avery whispered, kissing the soft fuzz on her daughter's head. I'm not going anywhere. Noah stepped back, giving her privacy, but he couldn't look away. Something in him clenched, protective, fierce, unspoken. He'd seen boardrooms, disasters, lawsuits. He'd never seen anything as brave as a mother holding her fragile child after losing everything. After a long, quiet stretch, the nurse approached. Would you like to meet your sons now? Avery nodded, wiping her face. All of them. I want to hold all of them. And she did. One by one, each tiny life rested against her chest. Each one calming under her touch. Each one claiming her. Hours passed like minutes. But the peace didn't last. As Avery was being wheeled back to her room, a hospital administrator rushed down the hallway, face pale, breath sharp. Miss Monroe, he said, stopping them. You need to know. Damien Hartwell, he just filed an emergency petition. Avery's heart dropped. For what? The administrator swallowed. To suspend all maternal visitation. Avery clutched the armrests, her voice breaking. He wants to take your babies. Avery felt the room spin as the administrator's words sank in. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The hallway blurred. The sterile smell of disinfectant stung her lungs. The pain in her abdomen flared so violently she nearly doubled over. "He wants to suspend all maternal visitation," the man repeated, softer this time, as if volume could soften the cruelty. "No," Avery whispered. "No, he can't do this." Noah stepped forward, positioning himself between her and the administrator. "On what grounds did he file?" The man swallowed. "Claims of emotional instability, unresolved trauma, risk to infant welfare." He submitted statements from 2 staff members. Avery froze. "Which staff members?" The administrator avoided her eyes. "Anonymous declarations." Avery's hands trembled. She knew exactly who would have signed them. Damien had always been able to manipulate people who wanted to be on the winning side. "This is illegal," Noah said sharply. "He's weaponizing false testimony." The administrator nodded helplessly. "I know, but once an emergency petition is filed, the court must review it, which means visitation halts until a judge rules." Avery grabbed Noah's arm, needing something solid. "How long?" "The babies need me." "How long?" "Hours," the administrator said. "Maybe a day. For newborns fighting for each breath." A day was a lifetime. Avery's chest fractured in real time. "He's trying to erase me," she whispered. "He already took my marriage. Now he wants the only thing I have left." Noah crouched beside her wheelchair, meeting her eyes. "He will not win." Avery shook her head. "You don't understand. Damien always wins. He manipulates, he pressures, he threatens people listen to him. They're afraid of him." "No," Noah said calmly. "They're afraid of who they think he is. But they've never met who stands behind you." Avery stared at him, confused. "Who stands behind me?" Noah didn't answer with words. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then placed a short call. "This is Noah Ellington. I need full disclosure on Hartwell's filings, and I want the board notified. Move the meeting to this afternoon." A pause. "Yes, all 10 members." He hung up and looked at Avery. "Damien thinks he's fighting you alone," Noah said. "He thinks the world sees you as weak." His voice deepened. "But he's about to find out that the Ellington name carries more weight than any lie he can craft." Before Avery could respond, 2 security officers appeared at the end of the hall, speaking in hushed tones. They kept glancing toward her room, looking uncomfortable. The administrator sighed. "I'm afraid they're here to escort Miss Monroe back to her room. Until the petition is reviewed, she must remain in restricted access." Avery felt her throat close. "Please don't separate me from my babies, please." One of the guards hesitated. His jaw tightened. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. We're just following orders." Avery lowered her face into her hands. The grief crashed over her like a wave, raw and suffocating. Then a voice rang down the hall, firm, cold, authoritative. "She's not going anywhere." Everyone turned. A tall woman in a charcoal suit strode toward them. Her badge identified her as hospital counsel, but the expression she carried belonged to someone higher, someone with both legal power and personal investment. "I'm attorney Marlene Hart," she announced. "Ellington Special Counsel." The administrator paled. "You're here already?" Marlene nodded. "I've reviewed the petition. It's invalid. You will not restrict this mother from her children." Avery's eyes widened. "It's invalid?" "Completely," Marlene said, "and I'll be filing a counteraction within the hour." Noah placed a steady hand on Avery's shoulder. "See?" he murmured. "The war has begun." And for the first time, Avery wasn't the one fighting alone. The hospital conference room felt colder than the corridors outside. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering like a warning. Avery sat in her wheelchair, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had turned white. Noah stood beside her, calm but sharp-eyed, his posture radiating authority. Attorney Marlene Hart paced slowly, reviewing a stack of documents thicker than a medical textbook. Across the table sat the hospital administrator, flanked by 2 risk managers who avoided Avery's gaze like she was a threat, not a mother. "We are here to discuss, Mr. Damien Hartwell's emergency petition," Marlene began, her tone clipped, professional, deadly. "Let's begin with your justification for accepting a filing based on anonymous testimonies." The administrator cleared his throat. "Our system requires us to take any emergency filing seriously, regardless of source." "Anonymous is not a source," Marlene snapped. "That's gossip with a signature block." Avery flinched, but Noah leaned down and whispered, "You're okay. We've got this." It for his nest. The administrator shuffled nervously. We were acting under family court protocol. No, Marlene cut in. You were acting under pressure from a powerful donor. Do you deny that Damien Hartwell has contributed more than $2 million to this hospital over the last 4 years? Silence. The risk managers stiffened. Avery felt a wave of nausea roll through her. So that was it. Money, influence, favors. Damien had paid for the power to erase her. Marlene continued, voice slicing through the quiet. Furthermore, you allowed a petition claiming emotional instability when your own attending physician cleared Miss Monroe as stable and capable. Explain that contradiction. The administrator swallowed. We were considering the complexity of her medical recovery. Then let me simplify it, Marlene said. Miss Monroe nearly died giving birth to premature triplets. Instead of support, you punished her. You downgraded her room, limited her access, and accepted fraudulent claims. Avery looked down, blinking rapidly to keep tears from spilling. Marlene pulled a paper from her folder and slid it forward. This is the psychological evaluation Miss Monroe underwent this morning. Voluntarily. To resolve any doubts. The administrator picked it up. His brows rose as he read. It says she is mentally sound, emotionally resilient, and capable of parenting 3 medically fragile newborns. Yes, Marlene finished. So, the administrator said slowly, it means, Noah said, stepping forward. Damien's petition is dead. Avery inhaled sharply, hope flickering alive in her chest. But Marlene wasn't done. Additionally, she said, pulling out another document, we are formally filing a complaint against Mr. Hartwell for fraudulent claims, medical interference, and attempted custodial manipulation. Bythered, present. The risk managers froze. The administrator's eyes widened. You're filing against him? Personally? Yes, Marlene said. The Ellington Trust is filing. Everything stopped. The administrator leaned back, face draining of color. The Ellington Trust? As in? Yes, Noah said calmly. As in the entity that owns 18% of this hospital's research division. Avery snapped her head toward Noah. She hadn't known that. She hadn't known they held that much power. The room changed instantly. The risk managers straightened. The administrator sat upright. And every one of them suddenly looked at Avery not as a patient, but as someone with real standing. Marlene folded her hands. Effective immediately, Miss Monroe's visitation is restored. Full access, no limitations. Avery gasped, covering her mouth. And another thing, Marlene added, Damien Hartwell is now flagged as a potential legal threat. His access to the NICU will be temporarily suspended. Avery's breath hitched. He can't see the babies? Not for now, Marlene said. Not until the investigation concludes. The administrator nodded slowly. We'll enforce it. Avery stared at Noah, tears filling her eyes. Why? She whispered. Why are you doing all this for me? Noah's voice softened. Because you're family. And because Damien picked the wrong woman to break. Damien Hartwell stormed into his penthouse office, shoving the door so hard it slammed against the wall. The city skyline glittered behind him, Chicago's towers glowing with confidence he no longer felt. He ripped off his jacket, tossed it onto the sofa, and marched toward his desk like a man preparing for battle. His phone buzzed non-stop. Emails, missed calls, legal alerts. He ignored them until one subject line froze him mid-step. Notice of investigation. Ellington Trust. Damien's blood turned cold. No, impossible. The Ellington Trust dealt with billion-dollar portfolios, national infrastructure, political campaigns. They didn't get involved in petty family disputes. Unless those disputes involved something, or someone, they claimed. Damien clicked the email. The message was short. This office acknowledges receipt of your custodial petition. All filings submitted by you in relation to the Monroe infants are now under review for fraudulent intent. You are instructed to cease any direct or indirect influence over the hospital or its staff. The Ellington Trust will contact you for a formal inquiry. Damien swore loudly, slamming his fist onto the desk. Vivian stepped inside from the hallway, heels clicking anxiously. What happened? You're scaring me. Damien spun toward her. The Ellington Trust. They're interfering. Vivian blinked. But why would they care? Damien paced. I don't know, Avery's a nobody, a schoolteacher. She has no ties to anyone powerful. Vivian hesitated. Unless she does. He stopped pacing. What are you saying? Think about it, she said slowly. No one gets this kind of protection unless there's something deeper. A connection, a name, money. Damien shook his head violently. She doesn't have anything. I checked everything before the divorce. Vivian crossed her arms. Did you check her family lineage? Her mother's side? Her birth records? Damien froze. Birth records? He hadn't. Because he assumed Avery was harmless. He assumed she needed him. He assumed she was small. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was his CFO. He answered sharply. What? Damien, the CFO said, voice trembling. Did you know the Ellington Trust owns 12% of our company's primary logistics partner and holds an oversight clause on all leadership conduct? Damien felt his stomach drop. No, he snapped. And it doesn't matter. It does, the CFO replied. They requested your entire behavioral history. They asked specifically about actions taken against Avery Monroe Hartwell. Damien, what did you do? Damien didn't answer. Because answering meant admitting he hadn't just kicked a wounded woman, he'd kicked into a steel wall he didn't know existed. Another email pinged. This one worse. Your hospital access has been temporarily suspended pending investigation. Vivian stared. They banned you? Damien's voice cracked with rage. They think they can threaten me? Me? Vivian backed away. Maybe you should lay low, just until we figure out who Avery really is. Damien grabbed his coat. No, I'm going down there. They can't keep me from my kids. Vivian reached out, stopping him. Damien, if the Ellington Trust is involved, barging in will only make things worse. I don't care, he growled. He stormed out before she could finish, slamming the door so hard a photo frame fell from the wall. As the elevator doors closed around him, Damien finally let fear crack through his arrogance. Someone was protecting Avery. Someone bigger than him. Someone powerful enough to dismantle everything he built. And the terrifying part? He still had no idea who he was fighting. Damien arrived at the hospital like a storm rage first. Logic nowhere in sight. His shoes hammered against the polished floors as he marched toward the NICU, ignoring the receptionist calling after him. He felt eyes watching him, whispering, judging. He didn't care. He was a father. He had rights. No trust, no lawyer, no shadowy billionaire was going to tell him otherwise. When he reached the secure ICU door, he punched the access button. The screen blinked red. Access revoked. Damien slammed his fist against it. What the hell is going on? I'm the father. 2 security officers approached immediately. Mr. Hartwell, you've been temporarily suspended from NICU access pending investigation. Investigation for what? Damien barked. Trying to protect my children from an unstable woman. She's barely coherent. A calm voice cut him off. Careful. Every word you say will be documented. Damien turned sharply. Noah Ellington stood at the end of the hallway, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed but commanding in a way that made the security officers straighten unconsciously. He walked toward Damien with the quiet confidence of someone who didn't need to raise his voice to dominate a room. Damien scoffed. And who the hell are you supposed to be? Noah extended a hand. Noah Ellington. Damien didn't shake it. He just froze. That name. That impossible name. Noah's expression didn't change. I believe you've been filing petitions regarding Avery Monroe and her children. Damien's jaw worked. They're my children. No, Noah corrected coolly. They are Avery's children, and they carry the Ellington name. Damien's stomach flipped. That was her choice. It doesn't mean anything. Noah's smile didn't reach his eyes. It means everything. The moment those names entered the system, our trust protocols activated. Damien stepped back, suddenly aware of the security officers watching closely. This is ridiculous. Avery is nobody. She's a schoolteacher. Noah tilted his head. Did you check her mother's birth records before marrying her? Damien didn't answer. You should have, Noah said softly. Her mother was Margaret Ellington. The trust doesn't care if she walked away from wealth. It cares that Avery exists, and that her children are direct heirs. Damien went pale. Heirs? Don't lie to me. Noah stepped closer, voice dropping. Your emergency petition triggered a review. Your divorce filing triggered another. And your behavior during Avery's medical crisis triggered 3 more. You're under formal investigation for coercion, custodial manipulation, and medical interference. Damien's pulse raced. I didn't know. How could I know that she came from a family more powerful than yours? Noah finished. Because you didn't care enough to ask. Damien's hands shook. Avery doesn't even know she's an Ellington. She doesn't need to, Noah replied. That's what makes all of this so tragic. She never wanted our money. She never wanted a fight. She wanted her babies and a quiet life. Damien swallowed hard. What do you want from me? Nothing, Noah said. This isn't personal. It's accountability. The NICU door opened, and Avery appeared in a wheelchair, pushed by a nurse. She wasn't strong, but she wasn't broken. Her eyes found Noah first, then Damien. Damien stepped forward. Avery, please. They're my children. Avery looked at him, calm and steady. They are not leverage. They are not bargaining chips. And you don't get to hurt them the way you hurt me. Damien reached for her hand. She pulled it back. Noah spoke quietly, but his words pierced the air like glass. Mr. Hartwell, you should leave, before this becomes worse for you. Damien stared at Avery's expression, gentle, exhausted, resolute, and for the first time, he understood something terrifying. The woman he thought he could break now had a name behind her, and a force he never saw coming. Avery had barely returned to her room when the pressure in the hospital shifted. Nurses moved faster. Administrators whispered urgently near the elevators. Even security seemed on alert, as if something massive had cracked open beneath the surface. Noah stayed by her side, calm but watchful. Something was happening, something bigger than the visitation dispute, bigger than Damien's petition, bigger than even the trust investigation. Avery noticed it too. Noah, what's going on? He exhaled slowly. We triggered a deeper review, and the trust uncovered things Damien never wanted exposed. Before Avery could ask what he meant, Marlene Hart stepped into the room, her face set in a hard, controlled expression. We have a situation, Marlene said, and it's about to break wide open. Avery's heart pounded. Is it about my babies? No, Marlene replied. It's about Damien. Noah nodded for her to continue. Marlene pulled out a tablet and turned it toward Avery. You need to see this. A series of documents filled the screen: financial ledgers, shipping manifests, falsified invoices, offshore accounts. Avery felt her stomach twist. What? What is all this? Proof, Marlene said. Damien's company has been hiding illegal shipments through their logistics network. The trust suspected misconduct for a while, but I don't think they expected it to connect so directly to your situation. This is for. Avery stared blankly. What does this have to do with me? Everything, Noah said. The moment he filed custody for financial gain, it triggered a line-by-line audit of his entire portfolio, and this, he tapped the screen, is enough to bury him. Marlene continued. He didn't just try to take your children. He tried to use them to protect his empire, and the trust does not take kindly to being manipulated. Avery felt dizzy. He was willing to weaponize our babies to cover crime? Noah's jaw tightened. Damien never wanted the children. He wanted access to Ellington leverage. When he realized their last name held power, he pivoted his strategy. Avery covered her mouth, horrified. This is worse than I imagined. It gets worse, Marlene said. Vivian Lake submitted an anonymous declaration against you. She helped file the emotional instability claim. As Avery felt heat rush to her face, anger, betrayal, disbelief. Vivian? She doesn't even know me. She didn't have to, Marlene replied coldly. She just needed the right incentive. A knock interrupted them. A nurse peeked inside. Miss Monroe, there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent. Avery tensed. Who? The nurse hesitated. A board member from Hartwell Logistics. Avery exchanged a stunned glance with Noah. Send him in, Noah said. Moments later, a nervous man in a tailored suit entered, tugging anxiously at his sleeves. Miss Monroe, he said breathlessly. My name is Peter Lang. I'm part of Damien's executive board. He looked at Noah. And you must be the Ellington representative. Get to the point, Noah said icily. Peter swallowed hard. The board had no idea what Damien was doing. And now that the Ellington Trust is involved, the shareholders are in panic. Damien tried to convince us that you were a threat, that your children were a liability. Avery stared at him, stunned. We're newborns. How could we be a threat? Peter's voice cracked. Because you carry a name that terrifies him. Avery went still. Peter took a shaky breath. We are prepared to testify on your behalf. Damien coerced staff, manipulated legal channels, and used hospital leverage to isolate you. We have emails, we have call logs, we have everything. Again. Avery felt her heart thud against her ribs. Why come forward now? She asked quietly. Peter's answer was simple. Because Damien can't protect us anymore. He lowered his gaze. And because I'm afraid of what the Ellingtons will do if we stay silent. Noah didn't deny it. Avery exhaled shakily, her voice trembling. What happens next? Marlene stepped forward. Next, she said, we turn Damien's empire into rubble. End quote. The storm outside the hospital mirrored the chaos swelling inside its walls. Thunder rolled across the Chicago skyline, rattling the windows as if the world itself sensed a reckoning coming. Avery sat upright in bed, hands trembling not from weakness but from the weight of everything unraveling. Peter Lang's confession replayed in her mind like a film with no pause button. Damien hadn't just abandoned her. He hadn't just tried to steal their children. He had built an empire on lies and used her as collateral. Noah stood beside the window, speaking quietly into his phone. His voice was low, controlled, but the tension in his shoulders told Avery everything. The Ellington Trust was moving faster than expected. Marlene reviewed documents across the room, her fingers flying across the screen as she compiled statements, timestamps, and every shred of evidence necessary to crush Damien's petitions. Avery watched them all with a growing ache in her chest. These weren't her fights, these weren't her enemies, yet somehow these powerful people had positioned themselves around her like an impenetrable wall, a shield. She wasn't used to being protected. She didn't know how to feel. The door swung open abruptly, startling everyone. A woman stepped inside, tall, stunning, perfectly put together in a designer coat soaked from the rain. Makeup smeared from tears, eyes wide with panic. Vivian Lake. Avery stiffened. Noah's posture changed instantly, sharpening like a blade. Marlene stood slowly, a predator sensing weakness. Vivian held up her hands. Please, don't call security. I'm not here to cause trouble. Avery could barely speak. Why are you here? Vivian closed the door behind her, voice shaking. Because Damien is losing it. He's blaming me. He thinks I tipped off the Ellingtons. He's throwing things, screaming at his staff. And she swallowed hard. I didn't realize what he was capable of. Noah stepped closer. You submitted a false statement against Avery. Vivian wilted. I know. I regret it. Damien said it was just to speed up the process. He said Avery wouldn't even know. He said it wasn't serious. Her voice cracked. I didn't know he was involved in criminal shipments. I didn't know he was under investigation. I swear, I didn't. Marlene crossed her arms. You expect sympathy? No, Vivian whispered. I expect consequences. I'm ready for them. But I came to warn her first. Avery's throat tightened. Warn me about what? Vivian hesitated, then spoke the words like a confession she'd been holding back for years. Damien's planning to flee. The room froze. Vivian continued, her voice trembling. He said if the Ellington Trust keeps digging, he'll disappear. He's trying to withdraw money from offshore accounts right now. And he plans to take the babies, use them as bargaining chips to negotiate immunity with investors. Avery gasped. No, he can't touch them. He can try, Vivian whispered. And he will. He's desperate. Noah exchanged a loaded look with Marlene. This escalates things, Marlene said. We need to act immediately. Vivian stepped toward Avery slowly, cautiously. I know I hurt you. I know you hate me. But please, don't let him take those babies. Don't let him hurt them the way he hurt you. Avery stared into her tear-streaked face. Vivian wasn't lying. She was terrified, and guilt was eating her alive. Noah took Avery's hand gently. We won't let anything happen to them. You have my word. Avery nodded, though her voice shook. What do we do now? Marlene gathered the documents with swift precision. Now, she said, we move before Damien does. Lightning cracked outside. A storm was coming, and Avery was done running. The storm rolled over Chicago like a warning, thunder shaking the hospital windows as Avery's world shifted again, this time, not against her, but around her. Marlene and Noah moved with urgent precision, phone calls snapping through the room, documents firing across encrypted servers, senior Ellington advisors joining in from different cities. It felt like the air itself was tightening. And somewhere out there, Damien was scrambling. Avery could feel it. "Is he really capable of running with the babies?" she asked, voice trembling. Noah didn't sugarcoat it. "Yes, but he won't get the chance." Marlene added, "We've already alerted the Department of Child Services, the State Custody Board, and Airport Security. If he tries to leave Chicago, every authority will know his name." Avery wrapped her arms around herself, trying to breathe. "I don't want him near them ever again." "You won't have to," Noah said. "But first, we expose him fully." Thanks for watching. Moments later, Peter Lang, the board member who had first stepped forward, returned, this time pale and sweating. "They're turning on him," Peter said breathlessly. "Every investor, every partner. The Ellington Trust initiated a leadership inquiry, and now the shareholders are demanding answers." Damien is, he hesitated, panicking. Avery looked painfully small in her hospital bed. "He wasn't panicking when he left me in recovery." "Why now?" Peter met her eyes, grief in his expression. "Because he underestimated you. All of us did." Noah stepped forward. "Where is he now?" Peter swallowed. "Back at the Hartwell Logistics headquarters. He's locking himself in the executive suite and trying to wipe files, but IT froze his access. He's trapped with a room full of investigators waiting outside." Marlene smirked. "Perfect." Avery's voice trembled. "What about Vivian?" Peter glanced at the door. Damien threw her out, blamed her for everything. She was crying in the lobby. And discretion. Avery looked down at her hands. "She helped him hurt me. And she came here to admit it," Noah said quietly. "Not everyone who makes a mistake is loyal to the man they made it with." Avery didn't respond, but the words landed somewhere deep. Minutes passed before Marlene tapped her screen decisively. "It's time." "For what?" Avery asked. "For the call," Marlene replied. "The one that ends Damien's power." Noah pulled a chair beside Avery so she could hear the speaker. Marlene dialed into the emergency shareholder meeting. Voices filled the room, angry, clipped, panicked. Then Damien's voice boomed through the speaker. "This is a setup. I built this company." A board member cut him off. "Damien, sit down." "I will not sit down in my own." Another voice. "Security, keep him seated." A scuffle, a shout, papers rustling, Damien cursing. Then a cold voice, the chairwoman, spoke. "We have reviewed the charges: custodial manipulation, fraudulent filings, financial misconduct, and attempts to access Ellington assets illegally through an unrecognized familial connection. Effective immediately, you are removed as CEO of Hartwell Logistics." A hushed silence filled the room. Damien roared, "You can't do this. I am the company." "No," the chairwoman said. "You were the company. Now you're a liability. Security will escort you out." More struggling, more shouting. Then, Damien's voice cracked through the speaker, wild and furious. "This is because of her, that woman. Avery Monroe ruined me." Avery froze. Marlene muted the call. "He's done," Marlene said softly, "completely." Avery felt her breath return, slow, shaking, real. "What happens now?" she whispered. Noah touched her hand, gentle, steady. "Now," he said, "you rise." Outside, the storm didn't feel so frightening anymore. It felt like justice. The storm had quieted by the time Damien Hartwell stumbled out of his former headquarters, but inside him, chaos still raged like a wildfire. Rain clung to his suit jacket as if the sky itself refused to let him leave untouched. The moment security escorted him through the lobby, phones lifted. Photos snapped. Employees whispered. The mighty CEO, thrown out like a disgraced stranger. Humiliation burned hotter than fear. But fear came next. Fear of the Ellington Trust. Fear of criminal charges. Fear of losing everything he thought he controlled. Fear of the woman he once considered weak. He didn't know where else to go. So he went to the hospital. He needed to see the babies, his last chance at leverage. He needed Avery to withdraw whatever she'd unleashed. He needed someone to believe his version of the story. Someone to save him from drowning in consequences he never expected. He wasn't prepared for what waited for him there. When he reached Avery's floor, security intercepted him instantly. You're restricted from NICU access, one officer said. I'm here to see my wife, Damien snapped. Ex-wife, the officer corrected. Damien flinched. Fine, ex-wife. Miss Monroe has requested no contact at this time. Damien's hands curled into fists. She doesn't get to request anything. She ruined my life. Another voice sliced into the hallway like a cold blade. No, Damien, you ruined your own life. Thanks for watching. Avery sat in her wheelchair at the end of the hall, Noah behind her, one steady hand on the handles. She looked exhausted, pale, stitched, bruised by everything she'd endured. But her eyes were no longer the eyes of the woman he discarded. They were steady, clear, unshakable. Damien took a step forward. Avery, please, listen. Everything's spinning out of control. You need help, Avery said quietly. But not from me. He reached toward her. We can fix this. All of it. I'll take you home. We'll raise the babies together. I made mistakes, yes, but you can't shut me out. Not after everything Avery shook her head, dismissing every word. The only thing we had was a marriage I carried alone. Damien froze. Her voice was soft, but every syllable struck with surgical precision. You left me when I couldn't walk. You abandoned our children before they even opened their eyes. You forged documents while I was unconscious. You tried to take them away from me for money and power. And now you stand here asking for forgiveness? Damien's breath faltered. I didn't know about the Ellingtons. If I had. That's the point, Avery said. You only regret what you lost, not what you did. Noah stepped forward. You need to leave, Damien. Damien ignored him. Avery, you don't understand. They're taking everything from me. My company, my position, my reputation. Everyone turned against me. Thank you. Avery looked at him with a kind of sorrow that wasn't for him, but for the woman she had been. You turned them against yourself. Damien took another desperate step. I love you. Avery didn't even blink. No, she said. You love control, and you love winning. I was never your partner. I was your convenience, until I wasn't. Damien felt his throat close. Please, don't do this. Avery exhaled slowly. This isn't me doing something to you, she whispered. This is you finally facing the consequences. Noah gently tapped the officer's arm. Escort him out. Damien's voice cracked as they grabbed his arms. Avery, don't do this. I can change. I can fix it. But Avery looked away. For the first time, Damien realized she was gone from him forever. And the world he once ruled was no longer his to command. The hospital quieted as evening settled in. Lights dimmed, footsteps softened. Machines hummed in a rhythm Avery had begun to recognize, steady, fragile, like her baby's breaths. But inside her room, silence carried weight, heavy enough to crush her, heavy enough to reshape her. Avery sat alone for the first time in hours. Noah had stepped out to take a call from the trust. Marlene was coordinating with legal. Nurses were changing shifts. Her babies slept in their warm incubators, unaware of the battle raging around them. And Avery finally allowed herself to feel everything she'd been holding back. She curled forward, pressing her forehead into her hands. The pain in her abdomen pulsed, but the ache in her chest eclipsed it. How did it all become this? She whispered. She hadn't planned on being strong. She hadn't planned on being brave. She hadn't planned on fighting a man who once promised to cherish her. She hadn't planned on carrying a name she didn't know held power. She had planned on being a mother, a wife, a quiet woman in a small house, with soft mornings and simple joys. But life had carved her into someone else. A knock sounded, soft, gentle. Avery wiped her eyes quickly. Come in. It wasn't Noah. It was Vivian. She entered cautiously, hands clasped, eyes swollen from crying. Avery tensed, but she didn't look away. Vivian approached her bed slowly. I know I'm the last person you want to see. I needed to say something. Avery's voice was thin. What more is there to say? Vivian swallowed. I was wrong. I helped Damien because I thought he loved me. I thought he saw a future with me. I thought being on his side meant being protected. Her voice broke. But he never loved anyone. Not you, not me, not even himself. Avery stared at her, unsure whether anger or pity should win. Vivian continued, tears sliding down her cheeks. I didn't understand what he really was until I saw the way he looked when everything fell apart. He didn't fear jail, or losing his company, or losing me. She met Avery's eyes. He feared losing control of you. Avery felt her breath hitch. Why me? He never wanted me. He didn't want you, Vivian said softly. He wanted the version of you he could shape, bend, silence. You were his safety net, the one person he thought would never leave. Avery clenched her jaw. He left me when I was dying. And that, Vivian said, voice trembling, is why he's falling apart now. You weren't supposed to survive the storm he created. And definitely not rise from it. Silence stretched. Avery exhaled shakily. You helped him hurt me. Vivian nodded, shoulders shaking. And I will spend the rest of my life regretting it. If you want me to testify, if you want me to speak against him, if you want me to disappear, just tell me. I owe you that. Avery studied her, not the perfect hair, the flawless makeup, the expensive clothes, the brokenness, the regret. You can testify, Avery said quietly. Not for me, for my children. Vivian's eyes flooded anew. She nodded. I will. A soft knock sounded again. Noah entered, pausing when he saw Vivian, but continuing with gentle respect. Avery, he said, his tone warm, steady. The board has finalized the protective order. Damien cannot come within 5 miles of you or the babies. Avery closed her eyes as relief washed through her like a balm. When she opened them again, she whispered, Thank you, Noah. He stepped closer, voice soft. You're not alone anymore. Avery looked at both of them, Noah steady as stone, Vivian trembling but sincere, and for the first time, she believed it. The woman Damien tried to break had become someone he could no longer touch. The next morning arrived with an eerie calm, the kind that settles over a city right before something enormous breaks loose. Avery sat near the window in her wheelchair, sunlight warming her pale skin. For once, the pain in her body wasn't the first thing she noticed. It was the quiet, not the silence of fear, but the silence of a storm shifting direction. Noah entered the room with 2 coffees, one for himself, one for her. Even though she could barely drink more than a few sips, he handed it to her gently. You slept a little, he said. I think my body finally gave up resisting. Avery replied with a faint smile. Noah sat beside her. Today is going to be big. Avery tensed. For me or for Damien? For both, Noah said, but mostly for him. Before she could ask what he meant, Marlene strode in, her posture sharp enough to cut glass. She carried a folder and a tablet, her expression unreadable. It's time, Marlene said. Avery straightened. Time for what? Marlene tapped the tablet, turning the screen toward her. Avery's breath caught. It was a live stream. A courtroom feed. Damien Hartwell sat before a judge, flanked by attorneys who looked as though they wanted to dissolve into the floor. His hair was disheveled, his jaw shadowed with stubble, the polished CEO image shattered beyond repair. What is this? Avery whispered. The emergency custody review, Marlene said. The one Damien demanded. Avery frowned. But I thought they dismissed his petition. They did, Marlene said. But when his company collapsed, when the board ousted him, and when Vivian submitted her testimony, we filed for a counter-petition. Avery blinked. Against him? Against him, Marlene confirmed. For endangerment, manipulation, and medical interference. Avery's stomach twisted. Is that why they're live-streaming it? Noah nodded. It became a public hearing because of the corporate crimes tied to his actions. Investors pushed for transparency. Did I know? Avery watched the screen as the judge spoke. Mr. Hartwell, we have reviewed evidence from the Ellington Trust, the hospital's legal division, and witness statements from multiple board members. Damien looked like he was going to be sick. Furthermore, the judge continued, we have proof that you attempted to remove Miss Avery Monroe from her children's care through coercive and fraudulent actions. Damien's attorney leaned in, whispering furiously, but the judge raised a hand. No, I've heard enough. Avery's heart hammered in her chest. The judge took a deep breath. Effective immediately, Miss Avery Monroe is granted full and sole custody of the 3 minors. Mr. Hartwell is restricted from all visitation until further psychological evaluation and legal review. Avery gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Noah placed a steady hand on her shoulder. It's done, he said softly. But the judge wasn't finished. Additionally, Mr. Hartwell, you are barred from approaching Miss Monroe within 5 miles. Violating this order will result in immediate arrest. Damien erupted. This is insane. She is manipulating all of you. Remove him, the judge commanded. As officers pulled Damien up, he screamed into the courtroom. Avery, you can't take my children. You can't take everything. Noah pressed the mute button before the sound could slice deeper into her. Avery stared at the screen, trembling. He's really losing everything, she whispered. Marlene nodded calmly. Actions have consequences. He made his. Avery inhaled slowly, letting the weight of the moment settle into her bones. For the first time since the birth, she felt safe. She felt seen. She felt free. And justice, finally, was no longer a distant dream, but something unfolding right in front of her eyes. The sun dipped low behind the Chicago skyline by the time Avery was strong enough to be wheeled down to the family room outside the NICU. The hallway glowed with warm evening light, soft and golden, as if the world itself was finally trying to give her something gentle. Inside the glass room, nurses smiled at her with something new in their eyes, not pity, not worry, but respect. They had seen her fight, they had seen her break and still rise. And now, they were seeing the beginning of her reclaiming her life. Noah held the door open as she entered. Take your time, he whispered. Avery nodded, her breath trembling but steady. 3 incubators sat side by side, each glowing softly under warming lights. Her babies, her miracles, slept peacefully. The monitors no longer felt like chains or warnings. They sounded like lullabies, like hope. A nurse approached with gentle steps. Would you like to hold them together today? Avery gasped. Can I? You can, the nurse said, smiling. Now that the stress is reduced, we can try a triple bonding session. Tears blurred Avery's vision. She held out her arms, and one by one, they placed all 3 tiny bodies, her entire world, against her chest. Their warmth, their faint breaths, their little fingers curling instinctively, everything inside her cracked open and rebuilt itself in the same moment. I'm here, she whispered, crying softly. Mama's here, and no one is ever taking you away from me. Noah stepped back, watching the scene quietly. His throat tightened. He had known this woman for only days, but something about her resilience, her gentleness, her fire stirred something in him he hadn't felt in years. Strength. Grace. A quiet power wrapped in softness. Avery looked up at him. Thank you for saving us. Noah shook his head. You saved yourself. We just made sure the world didn't stop you. Avery smiled through tears. Still, I wouldn't have made it without you. Before Noah could respond, Marlene entered, her expression softer than usual. I have news, she said. Good news. Avery braced herself. What is it? The court approved expedited processing for your protective custody. Damien cannot appeal for 6 months. Avery exhaled in relief. And, Marlene added, the Ellington Trust Board will be issuing a public statement recognizing your children as legal heirs. Discreetly but officially. Avery blinked. Heirs? Noah? I don't want money. Noah crouched beside her, voice warm and steady. It's not about money, it's about protection. The world treats Ellington heirs differently. Safer, cleaner. No one will ever try to use them again. Avery lowered her gaze to her babies. If it keeps them safe, then I accept. Experimentally do no. Noah smiled softly. You're stronger than you know, Avery. Suddenly, Vivian appeared hesitantly at the doorway. Can I come in? Avery looked at her for a long moment, really looked. Vivian wasn't the polished woman she'd seen in glossy clothes beside Damien. She was small, fragile, remorseful. Avery nodded once. Come. Vivian stepped closer, eyes softening as she saw Avery holding all 3 children. You're amazing. Avery gave a faint smile. They're amazing. I'm just trying to be worthy of them. Vivian swallowed. You already are. Silence settled, warm and full. Avery looked at Noah, at Marlene, at Vivian, and then down at her sleeping children. This was the first day she felt like the universe wasn't collapsing on her, but opening for her. A life she could build, a future she could believe in, a peace she could finally reach for. And for the first time, Avery stood tall in her heart. 6 weeks later, spring sunlight spilled across Chicago like a blessing. The air felt brighter, softer, warmer, almost as if the city itself knew a chapter had closed and another had begun. Avery stepped out of the hospital for the first time, with all 3 of her babies tucked safely in their carriers, their tiny breaths warm against her chest. She wasn't alone. Noah walked beside her, holding the diaper bags, making sure she didn't take a single step without steady ground beneath her. Nurses lined the entrance, waving goodbye like proud aunts. Even Marlene appeared, arms crossed but smiling in a way that softened her sharp edges. "You did it," Noah murmured. Avery looked around, overwhelmed. "We did it." Their car, a modest SUV the trust arranged for her, waited at the curb. Not flashy, not extravagant, just safe and reliable. Something she had never truly had before. As they loaded the babies inside, Marlene handed Avery an envelope. "Final court orders," she said. "Damien's rights remain suspended indefinitely, and after the financial crimes hearing this morning, he won't be in a position to challenge anything for a very, very long time." Avery swallowed. What happened to him? Marlene didn't sugarcoat it. Indictments, asset seizures. His board named a new CEO, and he's confined under monitoring until trial. He's not going anywhere near you again. Avery felt something loosen in her chest, not joy, not revenge, but release. She nodded. "Thank you. If you wanted Dak," Marlene squeezed her shoulder. "Take care of those babies. And yourself." When the car pulled away from the hospital, Avery looked out the window at the city rushing by. She remembered every moment she thought she wouldn't make it, every time she cried alone, every night she begged for strength. And now, she was going home with her children. She was free. She was alive. They drove to a quiet townhouse on a tree-lined street, a safe haven arranged by the trust until Avery was ready to choose her permanent home. Flowers bloomed along the walkway. Wind chimes danced softly. It felt like a place where new beginnings waited on the porch. Inside, sunlight spilled across warm wooden floors. A crib set stood ready, soft blankets folded neatly, baby clothes organized by size and color. It felt surreal. "Noah," Avery whispered, overwhelmed. "This is too much." "Use 4. "It's not enough," Noah said, "but it's a start." There was a pause, long, gentle, meaningful. Avery looked at him, truly looked, and for the first time she didn't see a rescuer or a powerful ally or the man who changed everything. She saw someone who cared. Softly, she said, "You stayed through the worst part of my life." Noah stepped closer, voice warm. "And I'll stay through the best parts too, if you'll let me." Her breath hitched. Not from fear this time, from possibility. She smiled, a small, trembling, hopeful smile. "I'd like that." The babies stirred, cooing softly, as if approving the moment. Noah laughed gently. "Looks like we have an audience." Avery laughed too, the kind of laugh she hadn't felt in years. Light, free. She lifted her daughter and kissed her forehead. "We're safe now, sweetheart." Mama kept her promise. Outside, the world moved on. Inside, Avery began again. A woman rebuilt. A mother empowered. A family rising from the ashes. And for the first time since giving birth, Avery Monroe Ellington stepped into a life she truly deserved. All right, my wonderful friends, so that's it. Our story has finally come to a close. And if you're still here with me right now, listening all the way to the very end, then it means something in Avery's journey touched your heart. Maybe gently, maybe deeply, but it touched you. So let's take a breath together and look at what this story is really telling us. In life, we don't get to choose every storm, but we do get to choose who we become after it. Avery learned something powerful. Your worth is not defined by who walks away from you, but by what you survive in their absence. And that's a truth many of us forget. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Avery didn't heal because life suddenly became easy. She healed because she shifted the way she saw herself. And maybe, just maybe, you needed to hear that today too. If her story reminded you of your strength, your courage, or your own quiet resilience, then don't leave this moment unchanged. Stay with us, grow with us, walk with us through more stories that speak to your heart. So my dear friends, if this journey moved you, even a little, like the video, share it with someone who needs hope today. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep healing, learning, and rising together. You're not alone. You're stronger than you think, and your story isn't over yet.